Yesterday we saw outrageously dangerous criminal behaviour by 5 teenagers that resulted in them losing their own lives and also inflicting serious injuries on a family that were lawfully using the M9. I want to condemn in the strongest possible terms that reckless criminal behaviour. I also want to emphasise that anyone who makes a decision to drive a vehicle deliberately the wrong way down a motorway is engaged in lethally dangerous behaviour, and it must stop. I've been speaking to the Garda Commissioner today and in contact with him over the weekend, and I've emphasised to the Garda Commissioner that the Gardaí will have whatever resources they require from government in order to respond to this threat to public safety. As you are aware, legislation is being prepared by my colleague Darragh O'Brien and Minister Sean Kenny. I spoke to Darragh O'Brien today for the purpose of strengthening the protections that members of An Garda Síochána have when it comes to pursuit. The Commissioner again emphasised that he is going to introduce pursuit training into An Garda Síochána, and he'll be the first Commissioner to do that. I commend him for so doing, and I support him in doing that. Would you say a few words and then you can interrogate me? Thanks for coming in. Yesterday we saw outrageously dangerous criminal behaviour by 5 teenagers that resulted in them losing their own lives and also inflicting serious injuries on a family that were lawfully using the M9. I want to condemn in the strongest possible terms that reckless criminal behaviour. I also want to emphasise that anyone who makes a decision to drive a vehicle deliberately the wrong way down a motorway is engaged in lethally dangerous behaviour, and it must stop. I've been speaking to the Garda Commissioner today and in contact with him over the weekend, and I've emphasised to the Garda Commissioner that the Gardaí will have whatever resources they require from government in order to respond to this threat to public safety. As you are aware, legislation is being prepared by my colleague Darragh O'Brien and Minister Sean Kenny. I spoke to Darragh O'Brien today for the purpose of strengthening the protections that members of An Garda Síochána have when it comes to pursuit. I've also spoke to the Commissioner today about the legitimate points that were made by the GRA in respect of pursuit training. The Commissioner again emphasised that he is going to introduce pursuit training into An Garda Síochána, and he'll be the first Commissioner to do that. I commend him for so doing, and I support him in doing that. I also think we need to recognise that in our laws at present, and this is something I spoke to Darragh O'Brien about, we will have to consider the introduction of a separate offence in respect of individuals who make a deliberate decision to drive their vehicles the wrong way down the motorway. That is using a vehicle as a weapon, and it is a lethal form of behaviour that, as we saw over the weekend, results in deaths and serious injuries. Finally, I think it's also important to emphasise that social media companies have a big responsibility in respect of this as well. They emphasise in their codes of practice that they will not allow any postings that glorify criminal behaviour. Regrettably, that hasn't been happening, and social media companies need to step up to the mark as well in respect of their own responsibilities. So I'll take whatever questions that you have. In terms of the pursuit training, the Commissioner has told me it will start this year. This hasn't happened before. In terms of training in Garda Síochána and driving, there's response training that many members of An Garda Síochána receive. There's the advanced driving training that Gardaí receive in the specialist units, but we haven't had pursuit training as of yet. The Commissioner informed me today that that training will start this year. He didn't, but I think the important point is that the pursuit training for the first time in An Garda Síochána will be initiated. But I have to say as well, no matter what training is available, no matter what equipment is available, no matter what laws are in place, if somebody makes the reckless decision to drive the wrong way down a motorway, a member of An Garda Síochána will still be faced with the decision as to what they should do in terms of pursuing the individual or not. And that's not going to change in terms of training, equipment or laws.
Sorry, just in terms of a lot of these people are doing, children are doing this, they're over 18, they might have licences to drive. I mean, should it be the case if this happens in the future, that they shouldn't be able to get a licence when they turn 18?
Well, I think the criminal justice system needs to deal with them stringently. And at present, if you look at the dangerous driving laws that exist, if you cause serious injury to a person or if you cause a death through dangerous driving, there's a penalty of up to 10 years imprisonment. But in fact, if you don't cause any injuries, it's just a standard dangerous driving penalty. And I think that's why we need to look at a separate offence. I spoke to Darragh O'Brien about that today, and that's something that he's going to give active consideration to as well. No, I don't think it's a crisis, but it is unquestionably a trend, and it's a trend that is happening on social media. The Commissioner told me as well, and this is not trying to deflect attention, but this is an issue that's not unique to Ireland. This is happening in other countries. Young men stealing cars, driving dangerously on the roads and videoing it for the purpose of social media postings. So the social media companies have a responsibility, but I want the Irish public to know that the Commissioner and myself are committed to stopping this.
Where are the parents in all of this?
That's a very good question. Where are the parents? But I don't. Obviously, it's a difficult time for the 5 families who have deceased persons there at present. But that's an issue that will have to be looked at in due course.
In terms of the additional kind of resources that they could have anything they want, I mean, are we looking at additional use of drones or stingers or kind of what kind of day-to-day?
Well, I know from speaking to the Commissioner that drones are now more actively used by An Garda Síochána in terms of, for instance, pursuing and seizing e-bikes, scooters and scramblers, and they have been effective in that. So I've no doubt that the Commissioner will be using drones for that purpose. But like the Gardaí have equipment at present in terms of stingers that will puncture the tyres of a car that refuses to stop. That equipment is available. As I say, we will have pursuit training for An Garda Síochána. But ultimately, no matter what laws are introduced or what equipment is available, if somebody makes that reckless criminal decision to drive the wrong way down a motorway, they're putting not just themselves at risk, but other people at risk. And that's lethal behaviour that has to stop.
Minister, can I ask, why is Revenue registering Asian imported cars that don't have EU regulated or EU regulation immobilisers, which makes it then easier to hotwire them? And is part of this trend you mentioned online, the hashtags are referencing Asian imported cars, and there's evidence online that they're Asian imported cars. So why is Revenue registering?
Well, obviously some cars are going to be less expensive than other cars, and those cars won't have the same anti-theft devices as more modern cars do. Obviously, we have to look at the broader aspect of this as well. People want to have access to second-hand, cheaper imported cars, so I can't have a response which is just going to stop people from availing of and buying cheaper vehicles. But we all have a responsibility to ensure that we use anti-theft devices to the best extent possible, and we try to ensure that we, don't facilitate criminals by assisting them through our cars being stolen. That can't happen.
Sure, but Gardaí have raised this as an issue that is kind of flaming this crisis with this hotwire that's easier to do. So is that not a way you as Minister?
That's an issue that I will look at in terms of with the Revenue Commissioners. Obviously, I'll have to speak to the Minister for Finance, who has responsibility for the Revenue Commissioners in respect of it. But ultimately, can we be absolutely clear as to where responsibility lies for the tragedy that happened early yesterday morning? It lies with the 5 individuals who got into the car and drove it the wrong way down a motorway. That lethal, reckless behaviour is the reason why they lost their lives, and it is the reason why the family of 4 are in hospital with serious injuries now.
And just on what you said there about it being social media trend and talking to, obviously there's laws that govern, as you said, those platforms. What exactly are you calling for there? Because it's flagrant online. Those videos are circulating, they're influencing young people. They should have been taken down.
We've a statutory agency, Commission the Man, that is responsible for that. Complaints, I suspect, have been made to Commission the Man in respect of these postings that are online. I have no doubt that Commission the Man is following them up, responding to them, investigating them. But even before that happens, the social media companies have a responsibility themselves to take them down. Glorifying criminal behaviour is not acceptable behaviour for a respected social media company. They can't allow that to happen.
Minister, on the 14th of July, during Leader's Questions, the Taoiseach, when he was talking about scramblers, said that the issue of joyriding is under control. Do you agree with that stance?
Well, in fairness to the Taoiseach, that was in advance of the events we've seen in the past 10 days or so, where there have been two very serious examples of people who have been using, certainly in the earlier instance, a stolen vehicle to drive the wrong way down a motorway. And that is a type of behaviour. It's happened frequently in the past 10 days or so, but it's behaviour that is unacceptable, it's lethal, it's reckless, it's criminal, it's dangerous, and the Garda Commissioner and myself are committed to ensuring that the Garda have the resources to stop it. But the responsibility primarily rests on the people involved in that behaviour. They've got to stop it, because we saw what happens to the people involved in that behaviour. You'll end up in jail or you'll end up in a grave.
So just when you talk about resources and training here, is it your belief that a Garda pursuit would have prevented loss of life?
I cannot say that would have happened. And if you consider the situation, say the Gardaí were in pursuit of the individuals in this car and the accident that happened, that the questions I'd be facing here and the Commissioner would be facing would be, why did the Gardaí go in pursuit of the vehicle? So no matter what training is in place or what laws are in place or what equipment is in place, a member of An Garda Síochána has a split decision to make as to whether or not they pursue a car that doesn't stop or not. But I think the fact that we will introduce and have Garda pursuit training will, I suppose, give greater confidence to Gardaí who believes it's appropriate in certain circumstances to engage in that pursuit.
Diversion program and its capabilities and strengths, something that you might be looking at now as well?
The youth diversion programme generally works very well, and I suppose we don't hear about the youths who are diverted from the pathway of criminality and who get away from a life of crime. We generally just hear about the youths who are involved in criminal activity. So I don't think we can say that the youth diversion programme isn't effective or successful because of what happened yesterday. It's always going to be the case, regrettably, that there are children under 18 years of age, teenage boys predominantly, who don't follow the pathway of youth diversion. And that they need to be dealt with strenuously by the law. And they need to be pursued by the law, because we're doing them a disservice unless we hold them to account for their criminal behaviour.
How do we speak to those teenage boys? Because, with respect, like the Justice Minister, they're just going to roll
Oh yeah,
eyes.
I know, yeah.
Who are the people that need to be able to speak to them and can get through to these guys? Because they don't care what's in the Irish Daily Mail or the Examiner.
I know. Well, obviously, parents have a big responsibility in respect of it. But I'm conscious as well that it can be challenging and difficult for parents because of the parents' own circumstances or because of the behaviour of the individual son that may be just extremely difficult to control. But like society as a whole has a responsibility as well. But like, I don't know what gets into the mind of people who are teenagers who decide that they should drive the wrong way down a motorway. Like, it is outrageously reckless, lethal, dangerous behaviour. And just basic common sense should make you realise that you're putting yourselves at serious risk, let alone other users of motorways. Well, listen, I've spoken to Darragh O'Brien today in respect of the legislation about providing greater protection to members of An Garda Síochána, and that's something that I know I and Darragh are committed to try to see we get into the road traffic bill this term. In terms of a separate offence, that's a separate issue that, that's something that I have discussed with Darragh O'Brien. We need to give that further consideration. We need to get the approval of government in respect of it. We need to have a discussion about it. But certainly, I believe the decision of an individual to deliberately drive the wrong way down a motorway is a form of lethal driving that is using a car as a weapon that threatens to injure or kill individuals on the roadway.
Minister, have you made contact with the family of those driving to the airport? How are those in hospital?
I've spoken, been in contact with Jennifer Murnane O'Connor, who is, as you know, Finn Fáil TD and Junior Minister for the constituency of Carlow Kilkenny. She's aware of the family in hospital. She's given me an update. Obviously, these people are in a serious condition. I just want to extend my best wishes to them and wish them a speedy recovery. I don't know as of yet the identity of the 5 teenagers in the car, but it's obviously a very difficult day and time for those 5 families as well, and I'm conscious of that.
Sorry, Minister, can I just ask how do you get through to this cohort of people, these young people? Are you seeking a meeting directly with any of these social media platforms? Are you in contact with the Commissioner Man? Are the Gardaí in contact with Commissioner Man or the platforms to use the videos for investigative purposes, to stop them, to take them down, or for evidence purposes?
Yeah, I'm aware that the Gardaí are in contact. Obviously, Commissioner Man is an independent statutory agency, comes under the responsibility of the Department of Communications. They don't report into me, but it is clearly the case from a government perspective that we have a statutory agency in place that has a responsibility to ensure that social media companies are behaving in a responsible way in terms of what they publish on social media. And their own code of conduct says that they will not permit postings that glorify criminal behaviour.
They have permission.
I know, so they are in breach of their own code of conduct. They need to respond to that. We have a statutory agency that obviously will engage with them. It has to go through due process, but it's a question you should be asking the social media companies as well.
Do you think they're acting responsibly?
Well, not if they're permitting postings to go online which glorify criminal behaviour. And that is happening at present. So in this context, they're not behaving responsibly, and they have a responsibility to take these postings down and not to permit them to be published widely on social media platforms.
Social media firms do you think are acting negligently?
Well, listen, I'm not going to get into individual ones. You, I suspect, will have a greater knowledge in terms of what's happening. I've been shown some of the videos that are online. I don't want to just identify one social media company because of one or two videos I've been shown. But there's a broad responsibility there. We cannot allow social media companies to glorify criminal behaviour. I heard Dr. Mary Aiken on the radio this morning, Morning Ireland. I thought she made a very valid point about the fact that if people are on Morning Ireland glorifying the behaviour, or people are in your newspapers, saying how exciting this type of activity is, you'd be run out of a job if you publish that.
Do you envisage in this pursuit training that is there ever going to be a circumstance where it is safe for Gardaí to pursue a wrong-way driver down an active motorway? Is that ever safe?
I'm not an expert in the pursuit training, and like the Commissioner says that the Gardaí will get the best training. There is a number of officers I know have been engaged already over in the UK where there's very good training available. But ultimately, it comes down to an exercise of judgment by a member of An Garda Síochána who's there at the time. And it's not for me or indeed, others to dictate you pursue now. They have to make that judgment call, and it's an extremely difficult judgment call to make because they have to take into consideration the fact that by pursuing the car that won't stop, particularly if it's going the wrong way down a motorway, that could result in even more serious injuries than what we saw yesterday. The Garda pursuit training is a matter for the Gardaí and individual Gardaís who will be trained in it. There may be situations where it is appropriate for a guard to pursue a car that won't stop that's going the wrong way down the motorway.
Why does it take so many tragic deaths on our roads in the last 2 weeks for the Gardaí to finally get pursuit training? Why isn't this?
Well, can I just say to you that the Gardaí has been in existence for over 100 years. In fairness to the new Commissioner, and I support him, this is the first time that we've had Garda pursuit training. We didn't have it through all the years of the Troubles. We didn't have it in terms of gangland criminal activity. But I don't want the public to think that the Gardaí don't pursue criminals. They do. They get response training, which for the purpose of driving. They get advanced training. Members of the STU and Armed Support Unit will have that. But this is a specific type of training, pursuit training, when you're pursuing someone. And that is something that I welcome the fact that the Commission... No, we're not. We're not. The Gardaí do an excellent job. And I know you appreciate, and the people of Ireland appreciate, that if somebody makes the decision to drive the wrong way down a motorway, that is a very difficult criminal behaviour to stop immediately. And the Gardaí were prepared on Sunday evening. They had the stingers on certain exits off the motorway. Had the people driving the vehicle gone off the motorway then, the Gardaí would have stopped them that way. But listen, it is something that I think is important that the Commissioner has made the decision to introduce pursuit training, and it is something that I fully endorse and support him on.
Minister, can I just ask, sorry, about a related topic?
Yeah.
Fuel prices and excise duty. It's due to go up on the 1st of September. The Dáil won't be back. we're reaching possibly over €2 a litre for diesel at that stage if the 12% goes on the 1st September. That would be very worrying for a lot of people. Would the Dáil be recalled to stop that September 1st?
Well, listen, it is a very worrying development, but of course, like, none of us really knows how the war in Iran and the situation with respect to the Strait of Hormuz is going to develop. And I suppose it just shows the unpredictability that not just the Irish government, but every government faces. However, when you look back to see at the measures that the government introduced earlier this year in April, I think they do reveal that this is a government that listens carefully to the concerns of Irish people and is in tune with the pressures that they are under when it comes to the increasing price of fuel.
Do you anticipate the Cabinet will be before that 1st September deadline?
I think Cabinet will be meeting for the 1st September, yeah.
Would you be confident that protesters won't be able to establish the kind of blockades that we saw earlier in the year?
Listen, again, this is a difficult issue where there's rising fuel prices due to no decision made, I suppose, by the Irish government. It is outside our control. You know, it is very difficult for the government to insulate the public from every consequence of what's happening in the war in Iran. But what we have shown in the past is that the Irish government is very in tune with the concerns of the Irish public, and we're aware of the pressures that they're under. And I know that the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach and all of government will be very carefully considering that issue. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye.